Hey, what's up, guys? We're in the upper garden here, and I wanted to do an update on my tomatoes, cucamelons, and peppers, but also talk about tomato training and tomato cloning, because we're halfway through the growing season right now, and if you want to create some more fruit, you can actually do a little bit of cloning, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is really just a matter of planting suckers the right way. So this here is my Husky Cherry Red tomato plant. I've got 3 or 4 main stems on the bottom, and you can see that this thing is just loaded with bunches and bunches and bunches of tomatoes. And if you look kind of back in here, up in there, you can see that there's some tomatoes that are starting to turn, the yellow, and then the orange, and then the red. So I'm super excited. And I like this plant so much because it stays small. It's indeterminate, which means it grows indefinitely, but it's dwarf, so it doesn't get as big as the regular indeterminate tomato plants, which I'm going to show you in a sec. Now, what I've done, all tomato plants have suckers, of course. You can find them when they're growing in between kind of the armpit of a main stem and an offshoot. And when they're long and they're really big, they can get very big, and they kind of go off and produce entirely separate tomato plants, which is fine, especially at this point in the season, because you get more tomatoes and more foliage. Maybe later in the season you want to start picking those off, maybe in August, so that the plant can focus its energy on just ripening and growing tomatoes off the main plant. But what I did is, down here you'll see I made some clones, and I forget which plant I took it from, but at the time it was the tallest and it had the most fruit, because if you want to pick a clone, you want to pick the strongest plant possible. What I did is I planted the stem about 6 to 8 inches deep, and I nursed these things with water 3 times a day for a week until they started to look like little tomato plants. And these are strong. They're starting to grow nice and quickly. I've been promoting its growth with a nitrogen-rich organic fertilizer, and I'm not sure if there's enough time left in the season. We've got about 2 to 3.5 months of growing, depending on when the first frost hits. But these could very well grow big enough to produce even more tomatoes, so I'm super excited about that. And you can do that in your own garden with any tomato plant. I would say from now until the end of July is your last chance to grow a clone, especially if you've got a really big sucker, so that you have a head start and you're not kind of growing a tiny little plant. Okay, so let's move on here. I've actually got some more clones here from a Better Boy tomato plant that I have in the lower garden. And these are kind of shaded out, so I'm not sure if they're going to work, but I'm trying to experiment. Over here I've got my Cherokee purple tomato plant, and you can see I've got a nice big tomato here. All of these flowers that have fallen off have little tomatoes. If you pull off the flower, you can see that there's actually a tomato behind it. Got more tomatoes here, and lots of different clusters of tomatoes all the way up. What I'm going to do eventually is stress this plant by not watering it, so it really forces it to grow fruit, put out as many flowers as it possibly can, so I can have some of these heirloom Cherokee purple tomatoes. They're going to be amazing. All right, let's back up a little bit. I want to show you my cucamelon wall here, which has grown quite nice. Every day I come out here and I pick a handful of cucamelons. Oh, here's one right now. Check this out. Oh, this is a big one. And you sometimes miss them. Look at this one. This is about as big as you want them to get. Sometimes you miss them because they kind of blend in with the foliage. But as they get bigger, they get more and more lemony, and they taste more and more like a pickle. So that's pretty cool. I planted some more cucamelons down here. I've got another trellis I'm going to set up to kind of send them this way, because obviously this is completely full, and there's really nowhere else left for cucamelons to grow in this massive mess of cucamelons. Okay, so let's talk about the peppers here. I'm a little bit underwhelmed about the peppers. Like I said in one of my previous videos, I lost some time because we had a cool spring, 1, and 2, I topped these. And topping is perfectly great if you have a long enough growing season. You're going to end up with a nice, short, bushy plant with a lot of multiple main stems, or a lot of main stems. But in my case, I'm not sure that these plants have had enough sunlight. I'm not sure that the growing season is going to be long enough here because we had the cool spring, but maybe. Hey, take a look at this. This is actually a sweet pepper. It's called Hot Sweet Thing. It's made by Burpee. Just a really cool looking pepper, isn't it? This is supposed to turn red, and then it's going to have, like I said, a smoky sweet flavor, which is good for grilling. I've got another one here. My banana pepper is starting to put on a nice pepper here, and it's super tall. I actually did not want it to get so tall, but I might have to support it. Back here, I've got what is called a sweet bush bell. And these bell peppers aren't going to get that big, and they're going to turn orange, so that's cool. And over here, I've got something called a sweet yummy. I really am not sure what that is. I don't remember. And back here, I have a traditional California sweet wonder bell, which is looking pretty good, and it's starting to put on some fruit. Now, something else that I did is I planted my sugar snap peas. This is a good time to plant your sugar snap peas. They take about 3 months. And if you do the math, that takes us into the fall, right before the frost. And so I planted sugar snap peas kind of in an L, here and here. Because if you zoom out, you can picture that I'm going to put a trellis. These are pole beans. They're going to go up over here and up over here. So it's plenty of room to really plant a ton of sugar snap peas. I planted about 25 seeds, and this is a plant that can be very high density. And I also used an inoculant. An inoculant is a bacteria that allows the pea plant to draw nitrogen from the air, which is great because the air is an abundant source of nitrogen. Now pea plants and bean plants do this automatically, but you can help them along by using an inoculant. The way you use it is you take the seed, you moisten them, you soak them in water, and then you toss it in this black powder, and then you put the peas in the hole, and then you add a little bit more of that black powder, and that should really help to get more growth in your sugar snap peas and your beans. Another thing I did in this bed is I planted a row of Denver carrots going down the middle. It's a little bit early to be planting carrots. Carrots do not like the heat, but I'm thinking that they're going to be shaded, so they're going to be just fine. Now take a look at my indeterminate snow white cherry tomato plant. It is just super duper tall, and it's looking really good. It's got clusters of tomatoes, you know, all along, if you can see there. Clusters of tomatoes there. We've got clusters of tomatoes up there. And now I want to talk about training tomatoes, because if we kind of take a step back and look what we've got here, we've got a very dense bed over here, and I want this plant to go up and to the left. So what I've done, you can see that I put in these shorter stakes up here, right? And I have been using them for support. But then I went out to the Home Depot and I got this massively long, very thick support stake, and I put it at an angle. So if you can picture, I'm going to back up a lot here, when this plant starts to really take off and grow even more, I'm going to have it go up and to the left so there are no issues with shading my Cherokee purple tomato over here. So you can really train tomatoes and so many other vegetables by just staking them and being proactive about coming in here with some soft thread and attaching the main stems to the poles so that they grow in a certain pattern. It's a really smart thing to do when you're doing high density planting, and it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, that's my update. By the way, I also took a clone of my Snow White here. There it is. Again, when you take a clone, they're going to look terrible for the first week. When the heat of the day, they're going to look like they're dead, but they're not. In the morning, they perk up and they start to look good. But you just got to keep them moist maybe 3 times a day if you can do that. And then within a week, it kind of has enough roots to be sort of self-sustaining. So that's a look at my my garden up here. And hey, thanks for watching. And make sure you subscribe, because that's really cool when you do that. Thanks, guys. See you later.